Hey, Chip.
Yeah.
There are specific individuals that the neighborhood has designated as speakers. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Did you?
I hope they know to raise their hand, because
Okay.
if everybody gets on, it's going to be hard to find them.
I thought he sent me a.
Nicole, you have Maria's version at 356.
Yes,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that's got Carol's amendment. Wanted to make sure it's on there.
that is the B and H.
Yes, ma'am.
It's 6 o'clock, guys. We need to fire it up.
Chairman, you have the host. Vice
All
Chair.
right. We're going.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Tuesday, February the 9th City Council meeting. I now call this meeting to order. Tonight's Pledge of Allegiance and invocation, should he desire, will be by our Vice Chair, Ken Smith. Councilman?
Thank you, sir. Everybody will render the proper salute and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move the agenda, sir.
Thank you, sir. We have no special presentations this afternoon. Could I get a motion for the minutes, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve the minutes with a proper second. Questions or comments before we vote? Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilman Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilman Ledford,
Yes.
Councilman Gilbert,
Where'd he go?
Muted.
muted.
Muted, Councilman Gilbert.
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod,
Yes.
Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Burrs,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Henderson.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses.
All right, motion carries. We now move into your order of business for the City Council. This afternoon, we have 2 items on final reading. Madam Clerk, would you read items 5A and B together, please? We'll vote on as a package if there are no objections from the council.
Item A, an ordinance closing and abandoning the eastern right-of-way of the 300 block of Tucker Street as detailed on the attached map subject to certain conditions. Item B, an ordinance establishing an easement across city-owned real property located at 1210 Mercer Street for the construction of a public right-of-way within the easement.
Councilman Mitchell.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve items 5A and B with a proper second. Questions or comments before we vote? Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilwoman Burrs,
Yes.
Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod,
Yes.
Councilman Gilbert,
Yes.
Councilman Ledford,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilman Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Henderson,
Yes,
8 yeses.
motion carries. We now move into our ordinances on first reading under planning items. Madam Clerk, 6A, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 802 Hamilton Avenue from M2 Light Industrial Zone to UGC Urban General Commercial Zone, subject to certain conditions.
Okay, is the applicant present this afternoon? Would you please raise your hand? All right. Is there any opposition present this afternoon? Would you please raise your hand? Councilman Mitchell, I think this is in your district, sir.
Well, Mr. Chair, I see 2 hands raised. I'm wondering if one of those are in opposition.
No, sir. I believe I recognize one as being for a different item. I think Mr. Outlaw is the applicant. I do not think there is any opposition present this afternoon for this.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve with a proper second. Questions or comments before we vote? Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilman Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilman Ledford,
Yes.
Councilman Gilbert,
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod,
Yes.
Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Byrd,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Henderson,
Yes,
8 yeses.
so moved. Madam Clerk, let's read 6B, alternate version 2.
Yes. Let me make sure I have the correct copy. An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 6626 Charlotteford Road from R1 residential zone to O1 office zone, subject to certain conditions.
All right, is the applicant present? And I'll tell you what, hold on one second, Madam Clerk. Mr. Outlaw, thank you, sir. I just want to make sure. Is the applicant present for this item, please? Would you please raise your hand? The applicant for this request. All right, I'm seeing no hands. Is there any opposition to this request? Would you please raise your hand at this time? Councilwoman Burrs, followed by Councilman Gilbert.
Thank you, sir. I would like the conditions read into the record. Do you have those, Phil?
Yes, ma'am. There are 7 conditions to this rezoning. Number 1 is no drive-throughs permitted. Number 2, business hours limited to between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. Number 3 is no dumpster service between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. Number 4 is lighting directed away from all residential areas. Number 5 is any signage limited to monument sign with maximum height of 4 feet and 48 square feet in area per sign surface. Number 6, provide a type B landscape buffer along the rear property line. And number 7 is compliance with the site plan attached to the ordinance, and the site plan is attached to the ordinance.
Thank you very much. And Councilman Ledford, I understand that the parties have agreed to all this. The applicants have agreed, because I've not heard from them at all.
Yes, ma'am. I have spoken to them personally on your behalf today and glad to relay that information.
Okay, thank you. I move approval, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Gilbert. All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve 6B, alternate version 2 with a proper second. Questions or comments before we vote? Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilwoman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod,
Yes.
Councilman Gilbert,
Yes.
Councilman Ledford,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Henderson,
Yes,
8 yeses.
so moved. Madam Clerk, what happened to my screen? If you would read 6C, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 3415 Cleo Avenue from R1 residential zone to R2 residential zone.
All right, is the applicant present for this request? Would you please raise your hand at this time? All right, very good. Is there any opposition present at this time? Would you please raise your hand? All right, Councilman Ledford.
Mr. Chair, there was a hand raised.
I'm sorry, for opposition?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, very well. I guess, Mr. Attorney, I guess we need to bring Mr. Bridger in.
Bridger online. Yes,
Give us a full presentation.
Yes, sir. Do you want me to read the rules regarding zoning ordinances here for them?
Please, and Vice Chair, while he's reading those, would you bring in John Bridger, please?
For
Go ahead.
people reviewing this matter here, in the case of any initial reading of a zoning ordinance, here's your procedures. The case is presented on the front end by a member of the staff of the Office of Planning and Development. The applicant is granted a total of 7 minutes for oral presentation and 2 minutes for rebuttal, for a total of 9 minutes. Anyone in opposition is granted equal time of 9 minutes. And then after the council starts discussing the matter, they can't be interrupted by the council or the opponents or by any other member of the public.
All right, very well. Mr. Bridger, you want to give us a report on this item, please?
Sure. Just a second. I'll share my screen. Can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Can now.
Okay. This is a request to rezone a piece of property from R1 to R2 to basically bring an existing vacant duplex into compliance. The property is located in the East Lake area community, just off of Rossville Boulevard. You see Rossville Boulevard to your left over here. You can see the site outlined in yellow. Okay. If you look at the zoning of the area, it is R1 zoning along the street. It backs up to C2 zoning in the back. Some zoning history, this area was downzoned after the adoption of the 2004 Rossville Boulevard community plan to bring it in compliance. I will note that the plan policy does support some aspects of duplexes. I'm going to jump to that. Basically, the recommendation is for low density residential, which is says that single family dwellings are the dominant use, with some exceptions made for townhouses, patio homes, and 2-family dwellings if the density is compatible. So staff looked at this based on you had an existing building that was structured as a duplex. The plan policy did allow for some exceptions to single family to allow for duplexes. And based on that, staff recommended to approve to bring that existing duplex back into use. There was no opposition at Planning Commission. After hearing from the staff and the applicant, Planning Commission recommended to approve the request.
All right, very well. Any questions for Mr. Bridger? Councilman Ledford, is that for Mr. Bridger or?
It is, sir, and kind of sitting in for Councilman Oglesby, if I may.
Okay.
John, is this EPB disconnect is the reason for the downzone?
As my understanding, yes.
Okay, and that is a vacant. It's not a vacant.
Duplex.
Is it vacant property? Or is it the structure still there?
The structure's still there, to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I'll leave my hand up.
Okay, I am not seeing the opposition at this time with their hand up. If there is opposition to this case, would you please raise your hand at this time so we could recognize you? Actually, the applicant would go first, and I don't see his hand any longer.
I'll move to approve, sir.
Second.
Okay, there we go. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve with a proper second. Questions or comments before we vote? If not, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilman Ledford,
Yes.
Councilman Gilbert,
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod,
Yes.
Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Burris,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Henderson,
Yes,
8 yeses.
motion carries. Now, if you will, Madam Clerk, let's read 6D, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 1132 East Main Street from M1 manufacturing zone to UGC urban general commercial zone, subject to certain conditions.
Okay, let me ask if the applicant is present. Would you please raise your hand at this time? The applicants for M&H Properties. Okay, I'm not seeing any hand. Is there any opposition to this zoning case at this time? Any opposition? Would you please raise your hand? I am not seeing an applicant hand nor any opposition hand. Councilman Byrd.
I haven't received any opposition to this rezoning, so being that, I move to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve with a proper second. Questions or comments before we vote? If not, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Burris,
Yes.
Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod,
Yes.
Councilman Gilbert,
Yes.
Councilman Ledford,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Henderson,
Yes,
8 yeses.
so moved. Madam Clerk, let's read 6E, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to lift conditions from ordinance number 6160, a previous case number MR 2020-0006 and MR 2020-0007 for retention of easement from sanitary sewer and storm drain from part of the abandoned 1300 block of Anderson Avenue, more particularly described herein.
Is the applicant for this case present? All right, we do have a hand. Is there any opposition to this case present? Would you please raise your hand at this time? Any opposition to this case that is present this afternoon? Councilwoman Coonrod?
I've had no notice from constituents about opposing this from happening through email, phone call, or meet up at the food truck. So I move to approve.
Second.
May I think was there a request to defer this from the applicant? Unless I'm mistaken, maybe not.
I haven't received the email about deferring it.
I'm not familiar with one either.
Not either.
Okay.
That they want to defer it, is that?
I thought is the applicant present?
Well,
Yeah.
she just raised her hand, but I haven't received the email. Today.
Let's see, Mr. Vice Chair, bring in Donna Shepherd, please. Good afternoon, Ms. Shepherd.
Yes, I apologize, Councilwoman Coonrod. I had emailed Anthony Byrd and also Mr. Ledford and then I also sent one to Chip Henderson. When I was reading the proposed ordinance right before the meeting, right at 5 o'clock, I noticed that there was a clerical error, so I do need to defer if I may.
Okay, well, we'll move to defer.
Okay, hold on one second. Ms. Shepherd, how long do you need? A week deferral?
Yes, let's do 1 week, please.
So that would be February the 16th, Councilwoman.
Yes, defer to February the 16th.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion.
Again, I apologize, Councilwoman Coonrod, that I didn't include you on that. You're both right on the edge of the district, and so I should have included both of you.
Oh, it's okay, no problem. Bird and Chair, make sure y'all get my emails. That's about me.
Yes, ma'am.
If she sent it at 5 o'clock today, I was busy.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to defer until February the 16th with a proper second. Questions or comments before we vote? If not, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilman Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilman Ledford,
Yes.
Councilman Gilbert,
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod,
Yes.
Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Byrd,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Henderson,
Yes,
8 yeses.
motion carries. That wraps up our planning items under ordinances for first reading. We now move to resolutions. Madam Clerk, under economic and community development, let's read, if there is no objection from the council, 7A, the alternate version, and B, please. 7A, alternate version, and B.
Yes. Item A, alternate version, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a temporary waiver of reversion in substantially the form attached in favor of the security interests of First Horizon Bank, authorizing the city to temporarily waive for a period of 15 years the right of reversion on the McCamey Animal Center parcel located at 4500 North Access Road, identified as tax parcel number 119HA001.04. Item B, a resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a first agreement to exercise option to renew and substantially the form attached with Hunter Museum of American Art for an additional term of 10 years to lease 7 locations as specifically identified in the lease agreement dated October 26, 2009 for the display of artwork for public benefit and enjoyment.
Before we take a motion, Mr. Vice Chair, would you excuse our guest, Mr. Bridger? We'll bring him back shortly.
Yes, sir.
And I do have the vice chair followed by Councilwoman Burrs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarification, Phil, the version that was just read that we are going to vote on this evening, some language that I had requested that dealt with the duration of this waiver rather than standard 15 years, it's 15 years or satisfaction of the note, whichever comes first. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir. That is in the revised language in paragraph 5 of the document on here, and it will terminate at any time the loan is paid in full or at the maturity of the loan. And they will also agree to release the temporary waiver of reversion at that time and file it in the registrar's office. So we included that provision in paragraph 5, and that's the alternate version.
Very good, sir. I would like to move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor with the proper second. Councilwoman Burrs?
I was up for a second.
Okay,
Okay.
very well. All right, we do have a motion on the floor with a proper second. Questions or comments before we vote? Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilwoman Burrs,
Yes.
Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod,
Yes.
Councilman Gilbert,
Yes.
Councilman Ledford,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Henderson,
Yes.
8 yeses.
All right, motion does carry. Now, Madam Clerk, if you would, under the mayor's office, we have several appointments this afternoon. Would you read items C all the way through G if there are no objections from the council?
Item C, a resolution confirming and approving the appointment of Dr. Brian Johnson as a member of the Electric Power Board of Chattanooga from the effective date hereof to serve the remainder of the term of Warren E. Logan Jr., deceased, that continues until April 15, 2024, and thereafter until a successor is appointed and qualified. Item D, a resolution confirming and approving the appointment of Dr. Mina Sartipi as a member of the Electric Power Board of Chattanooga to serve the remainder of the term of Marcus Shaw from the effective date hereof until April 15, 2023, and thereafter until a successor is appointed and qualified. Item E, a resolution confirming and approving the reappointment of Vicky Gregg as a member of the Electric Power Board of Chattanooga to become effective upon her present term expiring April 15, 2021, and continuing thereafter until April 15, 2026. And until her successor is appointed and qualified. Item F, a resolution confirming the mayor's appointment of David Littlejohn and reappointments of Paul Kahn and Dan Jacobson to the Chattanooga Metropolitan Airport Authority. Item G, a resolution confirming the mayor's appointments of Benjamin Moore, Josh Fain, and Jay Martin to the Tree Commission.
All right, council, what is your pleasure?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve items 7C through G with a proper second. Questions or comments before we vote? Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilman Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilman Ledford,
Yes.
Councilman Gilbert,
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod,
Yes.
Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Burrs,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Henderson,
Yes,
8 yeses.
so moved. Now, Madam Clerk, moving on to item 7H, please.
A resolution to accept the City of Chattanooga 2019 disparity report in its final form and to authorize the Office of Multicultural Affairs and the Purchasing Division to work with other interested organizations, stakeholders, and city departments to expand and strengthen the city's purchasing equity programs.
I have several hands up at this time. I'm going to take them from the top down. Councilman Gilbert, followed by Councilwoman Coonrod, Burrs, Byrd, and I think that's it. So
I move
Councilman
to
Gilbert.
approve. Move to approve.
All right, Councilwoman Coonrod.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve item 7H with a proper second. Councilwoman Burrs,
I was gonna second. Right on.
Councilman Byrd.
I guess our fourth.
Okay, very well.
I'll fix it then.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Like all of us.
Councilwoman Burrs,
Sure, of course, yes.
Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod,
Yes.
Councilman Gilbert,
Yes.
Councilman Ledford,
Oh, yes.
Councilman Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Henderson,
Yes,
8 yeses.
that motion carries unanimously. All right, council, for this next item that is in my district, I'm going to turn the chair, over to Vice Chair Smith to let him chair this next item. So, Mr. Vice Chair, the chair is yours.
Thank you, sir. All right. Madam Clerk, item I, please.
A resolution approving a special exceptions permit for a residential plan unit development for properties located in the 4600 block of Fire Pink Trail and the 800 through 1000 blocks of Reeves Lake Road, subject to certain conditions.
Thank you, ma'am. I am fairly certain that we have the applicant and opposition here this evening. So, Phil, you read rules earlier under planning. Do those rules still stand, or do we need to read them again for this? Here for this.
I'll be glad to read them again, or they still stand regarding this. I think the parties are familiar with this, but you get 7 minutes for oral presentation plus 2 minutes for rebuttal for a total of 9 minutes for the applicant. And then opposition has a total of 9 minutes that has to be just split up among anyone for a total of 9. And then once there's discussion by council members, it's not to be interrupted by anyone.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Henderson, would you like Mr. Bridger to do the intro on this piece, and then we'll hear from the applicant?
Absolutely. And okay, Councilman Mitchell put his hand down, but yes, bring in Mr. Bridger.
Mr. Bridger.
Let's have a presentation, sir.
It's always good to bring somebody in that we can blame for it later. Hang on. Mr. Bridger is on his way. Good evening, Mr. Bridger.
I heard that.
And welcome back.
Hey, welcome.
All right, sir. Please share your screen and give us a presentation on this item.
Sure. And I'm going to, I briefed y'all fully in committee last week, so I won't go over the full history, but I will cover, of course, the basics of the land use and zoning patterns of the area, if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a request for a special permit, exceptions permit for a planned unit development. It's going to feature 225 residential units on 50 acres of land, as you see here on your screen. This shows you the site. The property is located at 850 Reeves Lake Road, basically just north of the Marston Springs Road, off of US 27 along Mountain Creek Road, as you see here. This is the zoning of the area. As you can see, to the north, it's predominantly R1. As you get to the southwest, you have some PUDs, a mix of townhouse and apartment zones to the south and southwest. And of course, you have the commercial zoning here, which is not part of this request. I'm going to skip through the history because I've covered that in detail last week. If you look at the land use development pattern in this area, you do have a mix of land use patterns. To the north, for the most part, you have single family detached. You do have a condo development called the Montclair East condominiums. You see right here on your screen to the north. Most of it is single family residential to the north. You see just to the abutting to the east of this property, you have some townhomes. Then you have a mix of townhomes and multifamily residential to the southwest of this property. There is no adopted land use plan for this location. The comprehensive plan, which was adopted in 2016, basically recommends level 1 and level 2 for this area, which means again, limited development to low intensity development. It doesn't specify a density, but basically describes it as limited development to low intensity development. There are some constraints on the site. You do have, particularly on the portion that's south east of Mountain Creek Road, you have the Mountain Creek runs through this property. You have in the light blue you see there is the floodway. And the floodway, again, you cannot put any structures in. And then you have the darker blue, which is your 100-year flood. You can fill that in, but there are some environmental constraints on this property. Just as a reminder for the PUD review, at this stage, there's not any formal engineering done. That usually happens after a PUD plan is reviewed and approved. And like anything, A lot of times after you go through those additional permits and reviews, you may actually lose lots. But at this point, there has been no formal engineering done on this property. Okay. Here shows you the overall master concept, which was submitted in several sheets, which I'll describe each in a little more detail. Okay. So segment 1, which is due west of Mountain Creek Road along the side of Signal Mountain, basically shows no development on the upper west side, basically showing that all is protected open space. Just a reminder from the PUD regs, open space does not mean it can't be cleared. Segment 2, which accesses off of Mountain Creek Road. You see Reeds Lake Road up here to the north. They're proposing some 33 attached townhomes that will be accessing off of Mountain Creek Road. Segment 3, which is going to the other side of Mountain Creek Road, they're showing 52 attached townhomes with, you can see the floodway shown in pink. There would be some filling in the floodplain, showed here this lighter blue line to accommodate the units they're proposing here. Staff is recommending a buffer along this northern edge because there's a single family residence just to the north across this property. Then segment 4, this is where most, again, your multifamily is being proposed. You see 140 multifamily dwellings. The most of those are right here on this screen. You've also see a node of multifamily units here and here. Just to give you an idea of some of the constraints on this property, there is 2 power easements going through this property as well as the floodway. As you can see here, currently the plan shows some structures in the floodway, and as we understand, I think the applicant is planning on doing what's called a FEMA remapping study, which would be reviewed through the state to have the floodway boundary amended to do what they're proposing. Finally, just again, talking about gross density and net density. I know there's been some conversations about that. Gross density looks at just the total number of units for the entire site without taking out any unbuildable land. Net density basically looks at what's you may not be buildable. And for this situation, just for demonstration purposes, we consider the power line easement and the floodway as unbuildable. So just to give you an idea of what that looks like, you have 50 acres, 16 of that is floodway, about another 4.2 is in power line easement. That gives you about 20 acres that's unbuildable. So if you look at the gross density, it's about 4.5. If you take out the floodway and the power line easement, the net density goes up to about 7.2 units per acre. And again, just give you an idea of some of the variety of housing types and densities in the area. That townhouse development that I showed you earlier that's to the southeast of this property has a gross density of about 6 units per acre. You do have a single family subdivision shown here, which has a density of 3 units per acre. This is that condo unit I was telling you about earlier, Montclair, that has 22 units on an acreage of 12 acres, about 1.7 DUs per acre. And you can see here the subdivision to the north of the property has a gross density of 2 units per acre. And then again, this is to the west of the PUD. You see some apartments there that have 65 units, average density of 10.1 units per acre. Let me go to them. Let's show you. And then to the, you see there's some apartments here with gross density of 9.8. And then as you get, it does get much sparser as you go further north. This is some of the residences on the hillside, just across Reeds Lake Road and west of Mountain Creek Road that have a density of 0.3 units per acre. So that's basically like 3 acre lots. So there is a wide variety of densities and housing types in this area. So getting to staff's recommendation, staff felt like based on the existence of, you already got a mix of residential uses in this area. And the amount of open space being proposed by the development, about 42% of the total site area. Staff recommended approve with a condition of that type A buffer I was referring to, where those townhouses abut the single family residential to the north. At Planning Commission, there was opposition. A lot of folks spoke out, and these are some of the concerns that came out of that meeting. There's concern about development or fill of the existing Reeds Lake in the area, whether or not you could still do that, being it was maybe a waters of the state. There's a concern about existing homes in the area already having trouble with underground springs, causing some flooding issues. The concern about the development being proposed is too intense. They also mentioned that the concern that the green space proposed was mostly floodway or power line easements. They expressed a concern about there was not any for this particular phase, any meeting or collaboration with the developer and the residents. Again, concern about they're already being impacted by flooding in this area, and that this development would just make that worse. They expressed the desire to have single family only, and they wanted to increase the buffering around the project to make it more compatible with surrounding uses. And then I think the last point was Westview Road. There's some folks mentioned that it is already a narrow road with no sidewalks that people were walking along, and the concern of if you had this development adding the traffic, that would impact safety. So those are the primary things that were as far as from the opposition that were mentioned during that meeting. So Planning Commission, after hearing from the staff's recommendation, the opposition, and the applicant, concurred with staff's recommendation to approve with that condition. And it was a 8-3 vote to approve. Let me stop sharing from there.
Thank you, John. Councilman Henderson, your hand is up, sir.
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Bridger. As you noted in your report, we have no area plan for this site, correct?
That is correct.
If we had an area plan, how would that be? Would that be developed with community input?
Yeah, anytime we do an area plan, there would be, yes, we'd have community meetings, yes, for that.
That's
yes,
what okay. Thank you, sir.
Is that all, sir?
For now.
All right, I will bring in the applicant and we will hear from him. One moment.
Hey, while you're bringing him in, I do have one other question for Mr. Bridger.
Sure, just one moment, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Pratt, are you with us? You're still muted, sir. I don't know if.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can, sir. Do you need anybody else at this time, Mr. Pratt, or are you good?
I'm good for the 7 minutes, and then somebody else is going to take up my last 2 minutes.
Very good. I'll just need to know who that person is, and give me just 1 second and we'll get you started. Chairman Henderson.
Vice Chair, go ahead and take Mr. Pratt, and then I'll follow up with Mr. Bridger.
All right, Mr. Pratt, if you're ready, go ahead.
Well, let me ask you before you start the clock, do you want me to give you the name of who's going to be taking my last 2 minutes?
Sure, go right ahead.
It's going to be probably Tim Larimore or Taft Sibley with North Chickamauga Creek Conservancy.
All right, very good. Tim or Taft, if you'd go ahead and raise your hand so that we can have you ready to go as soon as Mr. Pratt is done, I would appreciate it. All right, Mr. Pratt.
Well, they're going to take the final 2 minutes after.
That's the rebut, yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, y'all ready?
I just want their hands so they're easy to find. All right, Mr. Pratt, your time is starting.
Okay, thank you guys for allowing me to speak. My name is James Pratt, and I represent Pratt & Associates and Pratt Home Builders. I want everyone to know that as of last night, we petitioned to the council and asked for automatic deferral for 60 days, but that request was denied. I'll go into more detail later as for the reasons for that deferral request. I really want to drive home one major point. The property will be developed. We bought the property to develop, and we plan to develop it, and want to try to explain why developing it under this PUD plan is best for all in the long run. This plan does so many good things. Plus, let's remember, the professionals at the Regional Planning Agency staff strongly endorse the plan. This plan sets aside 21 acres of green space, which we would be willing to sell to the city as a dedicated park space. By doing this, it allows all the green space, including the creeks, streams, the famous post oak tree, and buffer zones on the property to be protected. There'll be a public walking path through the property. There's even another 10 acres of green space that's part of the development that will be owned and controlled by an HOA. So out of 50 plus acres, we're proposing approximately 30 acres of protected green space. The question always comes up, well, what's the plans for the clubhouse parcel that is in litigation? Under the right scenario, we'd be willing to conserve that property and donate it or sell it, yet to be a named entity. In summary, we feel strongly developing the property under this PUD plan or some close derivative of this plan is the best possible outcome for all parties, i.e. us, the city, the Friends of Mountain Creek, North Chickamauga Conservancy, and the public. In addition to all the benefits I just mentioned, we have determined that since there is such a need for affordable and diverse housing in Chattanooga, we think the apartment piece would be a perfect place to include some type of affordable housing. We realize that the apartment piece is the real rub with the Friends of Mountain Creek, but after evaluating the situation for the entire city, it makes perfect sense to explore how to include affordable housing as part of this great development. We all as citizens of this city and county know there's a real shortage of affordable and diverse housing. We'd like to be a part of the remedy of this situation. This would be a perfect place to do that. Single family housing, diverse and affordable housing, parks, green spaces, walking trails, all adjacent to a public park. What could be better for our city? Now let's look at the possible scenario if the property is developed as a straight R1 subdivision, which is the way it's zoned, the way most of it is zoned now. The entire site would be subdivided into single family lots. That means every inch of this property would be owned by individual homeowners. No dedicated green space, no walking trail, no public access to the proposed park via this property, no post oak, and no affordable and diverse housing. The development may or may not have an HOA with covenants and restrictions protecting the value of the homes. In other words, all control is lost over what this property looks like in 10 years. In reality, under this scenario, there would be little protection of streams and stream buffers. I want to be perfectly clear. We think that this property should be developed under this PUD plan, and we really don't want to develop it under straight R1 zoning. We're now asking for a 60-day deferral so we can explore all possibilities for this PUD plan to include affordable and diverse housing in any other areas that are beneficial to all. And if it's not deferred or if it's denied, there'll be no green space, no park, no walking trails, no post oak, no affordable and diverse housing. Plus the unknown of what may happen on the 2.8 acre clubhouse piece that is in litigation. In closing, here's what I want everyone on the council to consider. We bought this quarry property. We had the right to develop apartments. We have since bought another piece of property right in the middle of our property that's zoned R3, which allows apartments. We know the community does not want apartments, but our right to develop this property with apartments on it when we bought it was taken away by this council, and we're fighting that with litigation. If this PUD is denied, or if it's not deferred, it takes away all possibilities for settlement of a lawsuit. We have heard since we started this process, no, 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 not only from this council, but from the Friends of Mountain Creek. We have negotiated in good faith through our friends with the North Chickamauga Creek Conservancy, and as late as Saturday had conversations with leaders of Friends of Mountain Creek. We have drastically changed our plan from the original plan. The opposition has not budged in any form or fashion, and nobody with the Friends of Mountain Creek has been genuine in working towards a path forward. They've trespassed on our property. They've done unscrupulous deeds. And as late as this weekend, they have not done what they said they would do. They simply can't be trusted. This case has a lot of moving parts and it's very complex. Why would you deny the opportunity to continue discussions and hopefully find some answers that we have not been able to find as of today? Why would you close the doors on any possibility of settling a lawsuit that could cost the city a lot of money and the Friends of Mountain Creek get something they don't want versus a few apartments stuck under some power lines that can hardly be seen from Mountain Creek Road or Reeves Lake Road? Council members, we are formally asking for a 60-day deferral of this case. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pratt. Chairman Henderson, I see your hand first, sir.
Yeah, thank you. First, I'm going to, I guess, respond to, since Mr. Pratt's time is up, Mr. Vice Chair, you can take him out. His 7 minutes are up, and he said he was going to defer his other 2 minutes to somebody else.
Go right ahead, sir.
John, first of all, we've been talking for several years. RPA presented a steep slopes and floodplain proposal for this council that we still haven't taken any action on. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we don't have a good handle on developing in floodplains at this point in time.
We have current rules.
We have current rules, but obviously because of the discussion and because of our hesitation, now we really don't have, and I think Mr. Pratt even said little protection of stream buffers as a result of our inaction in floodplains. So the applicant is even admitting, if we don't go by his PUD, that we have little protection for these stream buffers. The second thing I want to offer this council, Mr. Pratt made the statement and I wrote it down. The request for denial was denied. For deferral, I'm sorry. He said he had asked for a deferral and that request was denied. I want to read you an email that I sent to Mr. Pratt, and I want to make this public. I go on I have a little introduction, and then I said, if you will offer a version of a PUD development with community input that does not include apartments, then I will offer a deferral motion on council action until the 30th of June. So to say that it was denied, I think is not quite accurate. I allowed Mr. Pratt to make the choice of whether he wanted to come to the bargaining table for these apartments that the community has remained steadfast in their opposition to this PUD development. Secondly, he brought up the fact that he could build apartments in the R3. Mr. Bridger, I think you told me that R3 would yield about 5 doors. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So to say, I guess, he could build some apartments. He could build 5 apartments on this. So it's not like if we don't do this PUD that, we would have 5 apartments as opposed to 140. He also made the statement that the community has not budged. And let me brief the council for just a minute. I believe the community has been grappling with this and has been at the negotiating table since, I believe, Mr. Bridger, is it 2018? Is that correct?
I believe so. It goes back that far, yes.
I believe it goes back that far when I appointed, or I put together a community committee that sat down and identified all of their concerns and discussed them with Mr. Pratt. Much the same committee as I put together with Councilman Mitchell and Vice Chair Smith when we did the development up in Hickson. That was successful because the developer was willing to compromise with the community. Mr. Pratt, even in his refusal to compromise in order to get a deferral, remains as well unbudged in his offer for apartments. Mr. Chair, that's all I have at this point. You can go on now, I guess, to opposition. And let me just say this, that it is my understanding that the Friends of Mountain Creek, who is sort of representing the entire community in this point, has, I think, delegated about 4 speakers: Steve Hunt, Bob Geyer, Bill Todd, and Jim Faulkner. So at whatever time you're ready to bring the opposition speakers in, would you bring those gentlemen in, please?
I will, sir. I've got a few other hands that we will go to first.
Sure.
Councilwoman Burrs.
Yes, I need a point of clarification. Would you bring Mr. Pratt back in? I just need to ask him a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Mr. Pratt, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
You understand that the discussion is about just the PUD for tonight.
That is exactly correct.
Okay. And I guess my question is, if we were to grant a deferral, what would the discussion be that would change or meet the concerns of the homeowner? What would be the point of the deferral? I'm all for discussion among people. I'm just trying to get my arms around that.
The main discussion for us, Councilwoman Burrs, we would like the opportunity to, since affordable housing is there is such a need for affordable housing in our city, we would love the opportunity to explore all avenues for affordable housing within the apartment component of this proposed development. That's the big issue.
So it's, if I've got this correct, the apartments would stay, that's non-negotiable. What you would like to do is use them or explore the idea of affordable housing in those apartments.
That's correct. And from day one, when we started discussion, we all have realized that the apartment component, and I said this in my comments, the apartment component is the big rub. And we understand that, but since I realize that the 2.8 acres is not part of the PUD, but I also realized when we bought that property, we had the right to develop apartments on it, and that right was taken away from us. But to repeat myself, we would like the opportunity to explore how we can meet the community needs better by allowing more affordable housing.
And just one last question. You do understand, and I'm sure you do, that this is not like the previous property, the 2-point-something acres. At this point, this would be totally discretionary within this zoning, whether or not to grant a PUD.
I understand that. I absolutely understand that this property there is a small portion on this property that Councilman Henderson said he thought you could get 5 apartments on it. Well, you can go, I don't know exactly, John, you know more than I do, but you could go vertical and have whatever the height limitations would be. So I don't know whether it's 5 or 10, but you certainly could get some apartments on there. So there's a precedent set that there is some zoning on the property within this PUD that is zoned for apartments.
Okay, so I guess there's one more clarification I need, Mr. Chair, and that is, so the purpose of the deferral would be how to get the best use of the apartments, not whether or not there would be apartments.
Is that a question to me, Council?
Yes, yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Yes, we feel strongly that the apartment piece is part of what will make this PUD a really dynamic, diverse PUD, and we made that clear from day one. And Councilman Henderson mentioned that we haven't budged. We certainly have. We've given up basically all of the green space behind the clubhouse. We've done some other things. We haven't budged on the apartment piece, and the Friends of Mountain Creek haven't budged on that either. And that we all know that's a sticking point. But our request remains that we need to be able to have some apartments on this site for it to be a project that I think is viable and gets a lot of things for a lot of people. And if it's developed as an R1 subdivision, you certainly won't be able to get all of those amenities and those other things that I pointed out.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I ask the Chairman Henderson to clarify one thing? if he doesn't mind.
Go ahead.
In your response to Mr. Pratt, I was reading on there, you said a deferral until June 30th, but I read March 30th.
If I said June, sir, that was a mistake. I
Okay,
meant March.
That's fine. Thank you. I just want to give a chance because we were putting that on the record. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, March 30th.
Thank you. My next question is, Mr. Pratt, are you on? I don't know if he's with us or not.
Can you hear me? I'm on.
Okay, I can hear you. So the deferral was asked. One of the big things that, I had at Planning Commission was the community input, and that was brought up just a moment ago. And it's very important, especially it's one of the criteria for a PUD. And I understand that conversation has been, for lack of a better word, resurrected. There was a meeting Saturday with some of the Friends of Mountain Creek.
Can I clarify that?
Yes, sir.
For the last year and a half, the North Chickamauga Creek Conservancy Group, which is basically led by Tim Larimore and Taft Sibley, have been basically negotiating on our behalf with the Friends of Mountain Creek. So the idea that there has not been communication between the two parties to a degree is correct until last Saturday, but it's not correct because we have negotiated in good faith through our intermediaries or through a third party, and we have given a lot. And yes, there was a meeting between myself and two of the leaders of the Friends of Mountain Creek on Saturday. It was a 2-hour meeting. I thought it was a productive meeting. We did not leave the meeting with an agreement or a meeting of the minds, but it was certainly a cordial meeting. And as a result of that, they actually have done some things that are completely contrary to what they told me they would do. So, how productive it was, I don't know, but it certainly opened the door for dialogue that up until then, there was no direct dialogue between us and the Friends of Mountain Creek.
Okay, and that answers my question, because what I was looking for was the glimmer of hope for the phoenix rising for conversation, something I was concerned about 2 years ago. I'm glad that meeting happened. That's a lot better than we were a month ago. So I applaud Friends of Mountain Creek for getting to that part as well, and you. I guess one of my critical questions really is, if the PUD is denied or there's not an opportunity to further discussion, are you going forward with straight R1?
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman.
Let me get my hand up. Mr. Vice
Chairman
Chair.
Anderson, is that a new hand, sir?
Yes, sir. That's a new hand.
Please go ahead.
I don't see any other hands for the developer, for the applicant. So I think we can excuse him at this time.
Yep.
We've talked a lot about opposition, and the apartments again continue to be the sticking point. And we've talked about deferral, and we've talked about the fact that the apartments are going to remain on the table. And so, I'm thinking, why would we defer for a week or 60 days if we're going to come back and we're going to hear this same case again with no change in the apartments? Because Mr. Pratt has just said that the apartments stay. So what's going to be any different that's going to persuade the community to change their mind? Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, how many have signed up to speak tonight in opposition of this PUD development that includes apartments? And your mic's muted, sir.
Sorry about that. Right before the meeting, when I looked, We were right around 160. I would say we're close to 170 at this point that have used a topic that has to do with opposition of the PUD. So over 160, sir.
Okay. So we've had 160 residents go online and register to speak in opposition. And you know what I found interesting as we were going through our zoning requests today, many of you would state, I haven't heard any opposition, therefore I move approval. So I want you to understand the community's steadfast opposition to this development with these apartments. Over 160 people have signed up to speak. We've got 162 in attendance, and I would guess that most of those are in opposition to this PUD development tonight. So I guess, Mr. Chair, at this time, and I did receive communication from the Friends of Mountain Creek that they would like to designate some speakers if we could at this point. And I think those are Steve Hunt, Bob Geyer, Bill Todd, and Jim Faulkner. Could we bring those all in at one time, sir?
Yes, sir.
If those gentlemen would raise their hand so that we could find you easier.
I've got Mr. Hunt.
There they are.
Got Mr. Todd. Bob Greer, Jim. Got Mr. Faulkner. I do not see Mr. Greer, sir.
Well, he was on there.
Oh,
Bob
there
Geyer,
he is.
Bob Geyer. Yes, sir.
Geyer, sorry. I believe we have got those requested, sir.
Thank you.
And all of these folks are limited to 9 minutes per your council rules.
9 minutes.
9 minutes total. I don't know who wants to start. Steve, I would just start with you. You're the first person I brought in, and I am starting the timer now, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm going to attempt to share a screen here. So bear with me. I'm not very good at this.
You've got it.
Okay, thank you very much. So I am Steve Hunt. My family and I reside at 1027 Reeds Lake Road, and I'm a board member of Friends of Mountain Creek, a 501c3 nonprofit formed to represent our neighborhoods. We speak for over 5,000 petition signers. Council, as you have heard this past Friday, Mr. Pratt invited me to meet with him, and the next day my neighbor Chuck Grant and I did just that. Never mind that this invitation came after the PUD was conceived, developed, and presented to the RPA without an ounce of community input. We are indeed thankful he reached out. Friends of Mountain Creek has been forthright, contrary to Mr. Pratt's accusations. North Chickamauga Creek Conservancy does not speak for Friends of Mountain Creek, and they never have, and they have acknowledged they never have. On Saturday, over the course of just over 2 hours, Mr. Pratt told us what this property would look like with the PUD approved versus without the PUD. In any PUD scenario, Mr. Pratt said he would build high intensity on this property, which is Friends of Mountain Creek's primary objection. No solution that Mr. Pratt proposed under a PUD eliminates this out of character, high intensity development. No solution that Mr. Pratt proposed does anything to help that issue. Residents of our rural neighborhood should be allowed quiet enjoyment as our current R1 and A1 zoning allows. As for the site plan of the proposed PUD, you can see that this land is adjacent to an overwhelming amount of R1 and A1 land. True that the parcels noted as condo PUD and apartment PUD indicate medium density, but these were developed under a previous PUD that promised the area would always be green space. Allowing this Pratt PUD would be a tragedy for those who came before us. This slide shows the neighbors in the surrounding area who oppose this PUD. It is not all the neighbors that oppose this PUD, but it is the ones in close proximity to this land that live here directly adjacent to it. The next slide shows the one neighbor that supports it, and that is our friends at North Chickamauga Creek Conservancy. The last slide that I have shows the uncharacteristic low density versus high density at this crossroads, placing this high intensity development in incredibly uncharacteristic for our neighborhood. If you stand at the intersection of Reeves Lake Road and Mountain Creek Road and look south, there is medium density and high density development. But if you simply pivot and look north, there's nothing but R1 and A1 zoning for miles. On Saturday, Mr. Pratt explained that without a PUD, the property would be developed under its current R1 zoning, which is good news for us. That's our preference. Mr. Pratt went on to promise that his company would not build under those circumstances, but rather he would sell the property to a production home builder who would cram around 180 single-family starter homes and move on. But this is not bad news for us, since it will provide the much-needed affordable housing that our city so desires. We welcome it here at Friends of Mountain Creek. We have heard that RPA's estimations the property could be developed under the existing R1 zoning to a capacity of about 120 homes. An engineer working on our behalf determined that number to be 110 homes. And it sounds like that is much needed affordable housing under the current R1 zoning. Unfortunately, we've been unable to come to a meeting of the minds as Mr. Pratt is unyielding on a PUD that includes high intensity. The residents of the area are against introducing another high intensity development here. We've been talking about and negotiating with Mr. Pratt about this property for 3 years. Mr. Pratt called our community meetings that Councilman Henderson organized as Chip Henderson's dog and pony shows. Our desire is for you to deny this PUD and stick to the comprehensive plan. Please do not let high intensity development in our neighborhood. Thank you very much. My neighbor Bob Geyer will speak next.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Geyer.
You're muted, Bob.
You're muted, Mr. Geyer.
I'm going to try to put a share screen up. It says I cannot share screen while other participants are sharing.
You should be okay now. There is no screen share actively going.
Mr. Vice Chair, can you stop the clock till he can get his screen share up?
There we go. Go right ahead, Mr. Geyer. You're muted again.
Come on, the clock's ticking.
All right, thank you. My name is Bob Geyer. I live at 4143 Quarryview, and I am going to discuss 3 areas of concern with this development, and that is flooding, springs, and Reeves Lake.
And Mr. Geyer, just real quick, I want to make sure that everybody understands you've got just over 3 minutes of the 9 minutes remaining. Please go ahead, sir.
How do I advance this?
And Mr. Geyer, you're muted.
How's that?
You're good.
The city relies on the federal, the floodway covers 16 of the 50-acre quarry site. I'm speaking about flooding now. The city relies on the Federal Emergency Management Agency's model with FEMA analysis to base its engineering decisions on the acceptability of building near the floodway. This model is not under the control of the city. The fact is that this analysis is badly outdated. The model ends at the boundary of Spring Lake West at 714 elevation. Further, it labels the area upstream as the area of minimal flood hazard. Try telling that to my neighbors upstream of the quarry. Non-conservatively and in the past, Chattanooga has filled in 80% of the floodplain along its creeks. Recently, the city allowed 2 homes to be built on Creek Drive at the 714 elevation. Using this analysis for justification, this was likely a bad decision. Chattanooga should not permit filling in the floodway without an accurate model to predict consequences. This PUD unacceptably fills in the floodplain and floodways and makes flooding risk worse. My next 2 slides would show significant flooding in the minimal hazard area, so-called minimal hazard area, behind a home on White Springs Drive, and another one across on the opposite bank during the Easter of 2020 on Creek Drive. And so in summary, filling in the floodway downstream will choke the drainage from Spring Lake West. The second topic is springs. All of the quarry area property has interconnected subterranean water. Not as shown here. Townhomes have been built directly over these springs. In fact, 8 of the 25 new townhomes on Daylily have water issues where owners have had to install expensive mitigation, including drain tiles with sump pumps, dehumidifiers, encapsulation of subfloors, sometimes in response to mold in the walls. And a few more Daylily townhome owners have suffered expense to regrade surfaces to drain wet weather springs. Some are not yet remedied. Other neighbors have shared the details with you on foundation jacks that they put under their homes for wet weather springs. So massive landfilling around Reeds Lake will block drainage from adjacent property. It will redirect spring water towards neighbors, and it will reduce perennial surface where it is needed badly. The chicken and the egg. The disposition of Reeds Lake and its wetlands is an unresolved concern. The PUD relies on a 2015 Corps of Engineers report that incorrectly states Reeds Lake is an artificial lake constructed with a golf course in the 1970s. Evidence to the contrary includes U.S. Geological Survey maps showing Reeds Lake in existence in the 1930s, and residents who have lived near Reeds Lake Road will attest to the fact that Reeds Lake existed even prior to 1920. Are we really to believe that the road was named 60 years before the lake was created? Reeds Lake is waters of the U.S. Okay, I guess next speaker is Bill Todd.
Mr. Todd, are you there, sir?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine, sir. You've got about 30 seconds.
Okay, for the interest of time, I'm not going to display any slides, but I am going to hit a couple of high points on my discussion about the roads. And these comments pertain mostly to Westview Road, but they exist on many of the roads in the Mountain Creek area. Westview Road runs downhill from Mountain View Road to Reeds Lake Road. It's a narrow curving road, approximately a quarter mile long with no shoulder. It's only a drainage ditch on each side. If a car were to break down on Westview Road, there's nowhere to move out of a traffic lane. Most of the roads in the Mountain Creek area do not have sidewalks for pedestrians. There's considerable pedestrian traffic as residents walk their pets or residents themselves walk for their health throughout the area. Additional traffic from new development would pose significantly increased risk for pedestrians. I want to emphasize Westview Road and the road infrastructure throughout the Mountain Creek area is stressed and inadequate for its current vehicle use. It would require significant funds to eliminate the hazards associated with these roads.
Mr. Todd, time is up for opposition.
Okay. Thank you.
Please, if you would just hang for just one moment and be patient. Council, is there anybody with questions for the opposition speakers? Chairman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Mr. Hunt, I want to make sure what you're asking this council to do. Now, Mr. Pratt, the developer, has laid out that many of the concerns that the community has been met. We've got 21 acres of green space. They have agreed to save the post oak. Without the PUD, there's no guarantee that you'll have any of that. Are you representing to this council and to myself that is the desire of this community, is to defer, or I'm sorry, to deny this PUD?
Yes, sir, Mr. Henderson. We have talked about those aspects of the PUD plan, and while they're fantastic, and we certainly applaud the North Chickamauga Creek Conservancy's what will soon be a world-class park right next door to us. they have their parking on Mountain Creek Road. And we have discovered through our investigations that the areas that Mr. Pratt proposes to save are somewhat unbuildable and are undesirable from a building standpoint. Our engineers have told us those things. And if he were to donate that to North Chick, that would be fantastic. But it sounds like he wants to sell that to the city. And so
Okay.
I'm sorry.
My question is just real simple. With given all the amenities, you're representing that you want this council to deny this PUD.
Yes, sir. Sorry for the long-winded answer. Yes, sir.
You're just like our lawyer. We can't get a yes or no out of him. Mr. Vice Chair, that's all a question I had.
All right, sir. I will release everybody at this point then. Give me just one moment. And Mr. Todd. All right. At this time, I'm going to have Mr. Larimore come in for the 2-minute rebuttal. Mr. Larimore, are you with us?
I'm with you. Can you hear me?
I can, sir. Please feel free to start.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I'm Tim Larimore. I'm the director of the North Chickamauga Creek Conservancy. You've all heard from me about our work on this plan for over 2 years. We've been working with Pratt on this plan. And Mr. Henderson, you referenced earlier the Hillock Farms development out on 153. And I sat in meetings with you about that development and thought that was a great success, the way that we were able to cooperate and get some key negotiation with the developer. And we learned from that when we came into this situation. When we saw after those initial public meetings how both sides had kind of gone into their corners and there wasn't a lot of negotiation, as neighbors to everyone, we decided to start dialogue. And in starting dialogue, we identified the ways in which our goals for conservation and access, community access, aligned with those of the Friends of Mountain Creek. And we took those to Pratt, and we were surprised that one after another, we began to get concessions. The post oak was protected. 40% of the property becomes not only protected, but also public space. That's key. It's not just that it's not being built on because it's a power line or it's a stream buffer, but this will be open to the public. The stream buffers were protected, and 6 acres for public use that is far more open would be available behind. So we decided that this was a great plan and introduced it to Friends of Mountain Creek. And we got more desires from them about the lowering of the density and other things. And the one thing that we can't get past, as you've heard time and time again, is the rental issue. And that is where we do not cooperate because we represent renters. We believe renters are stakeholders in our community and have been at times a little bit alarmed by the ability to dismiss people who rent in our community as somehow not welcome in the community. This is surrounded by rentals, and we thought that it was a good plan. And so we urge the council not to squander an opportunity to have some key conservation gains because of what we see is simply an opposition to rentals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Larimore. I have no hands. Councilman Henderson, did you have any questions you may have for Mr. Larimore, or can I release him, sir?
I think you can excuse him. Sorry.
All right. Oh, wait a minute. I do have a couple hands now. Sometimes you got to give a little bit of prodding here. Councilwoman Burrs, you're muted, ma'am.
So, Mr. Larimore, I keep hearing a lot of things tied together for the future. You understand that we're just talking about this one PUD, not all the other things with the clubhouse and the lawsuit and all of those. Are we on the same page?
We are absolutely on the same page. We have not been a part of the lawsuit. We have not been in that at all. We are not talking about the clubhouse at all. We are talking about the protected space behind the clubhouse, which we think would be valuable for the public.
Thank you.
Is that it, ma'am?
I think so.
Councilman Burt.
Yes, sir. You can, this is not for Mr. Larimore. This is, so you can excuse him. Thank you, sir. This is for John Bridger.
Yes, sir.
Just for process, when somebody is looking to do a PUD, whether it's up here in Mount Creek, anywhere, the process is to give notification to the community, right?
That's correct.
For what? Why do we give notification to the community?
Just basically so they're aware and they can, attend the meetings, are able to. We also, of course, encourage the applicant to meet with the community. But the notification is to make them aware of what's happening so that they can provide comments at the Planning Commission and at this forum.
So they can, and this body receives those comments from the community, and then we render a decision, or we'll vote as a body to say yay or nay, depending on what the community says.
For processing what staff said, what Planning Commission said, and the community, yes. Look at all those three elements. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Gilbert. You're muted, sir.
John Bridger.
Yes, sir.
Let me get an understanding. I'm hearing different things. I want to make sure I'm clear on it. The property that might get donated to a group, land trust, is that property buildable? Can you build anything on that property?
Some of it is, some of it's not. I mean, the northern section doesn't have as much encumbrances as you go across the other side of Mountain Creek Road. And you get to the other side of Mountain Creek Road, that's where you have the floodway and the floodplain and the utility easements that are more encumbrances to development.
So some of this property that is going to be donated, you cannot build anything on it, correct?
I think the section to the north for the Mountain Creek, for the North Chickamauga Creek, that's actually buildable. It doesn't have a floodplain or floodway or utility easements on the north side.
But the part that's not buildable, it is something that's not buildable, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And this is the part that's going to be donated, some of it.
Yeah, I'm not aware that I'm not sure what specific portion is being donated to North Chickamauga Creek Conservancy, so I couldn't address that specifically.
Okay, I know it's been brought up several times because if it shouldn't, like my colleagues keep saying, this is about the PUD and not necessarily about the other part of it. But I keep bringing it up. If we don't pass this, then I'm not going to do anything R1. So I'm assuming that the land that there's going to donate to the individuals, that's off the table. Even the property that is not, you cannot use, is still off the table. That's why I'm gathering from the conversation. And I just want to make clear that it is some property that is you cannot build, or it's not wise to build.
I think I estimate it's about 20 of the 30 is floodplain, floodway, or utility easements.
So 20 out of the 30.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Henderson, Chairman.
I want to clarify one point, and we keep throwing that word donated around a lot tonight. So on February the 8th, I sent Mr. Larimore an email, and I said, and of course I had asked him, in his agreement, they referenced a donation. And so I clarified an email, and I said, so just to be clear, PHB has not agreed to donate any land to NCCC, correct? With a question mark. Mr. Larimore responded, that is correct. So there is no agreement to donate any land at this point in time.
Is that it, sir?
Mr. Chairman, if you would, I think Mr. Councilman Mitchell has his hand up, and then I'll I'll lower mine and then I've got a few things that I would like to address but I would like for the council to get all their questions answered first.
Councilman Mitchell.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. My goodness, you got unbelievable conservation groups involved in the park, but we're not talking about the park. We've never talked about the park, but I want to say something, and I'll put my record up about open space and parkland with anybody in Chattanooga. You got a person drawing units in the floodway. I just really feel that you need to maybe re-examine or get that spirit back that is the good fight, the true good fight. And I think that this match, this team, well, I'll tell you what, my mother said, don't say anything bad about people, but I will say this is not my mother's North Chickamauga Creek Conservancy. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Any further comments by the council? Chairman Henderson, did you have something further before I call for a vote, sir?
I did, sir, and I'll try not to be too lengthy. So I do have a couple of 3 issues with this PUD proposal. Number one is land use. And as Mr. Bridger's already noted, we don't have an area plan for this building site. So we have to design development on the fly. Now, I think that causes a couple of problems, but the best I can offer and look at is a Euclidean type zoning where you have transitions. And if you will look to the south on Mountain Creek Road, you will see high intensity apartments, which I have voted in favor of rezoning because it is entirely appropriate. The infrastructure is there and it's entirely appropriate on the south end of Mountain Creek Road. As you cross Morrison Springs and you head north, you start to create a transition. And that's consistent with general planning in the suburb context. The reason you have so much opposition to this is because we're trying to shoehorn something in and make something fit that's not designed to be there. So I think the Euclidean form of designing this is not in keeping with that form. The second is limited transportation. And Mr. Chair, I apologize trying to get all my paperwork together. But in the comprehensive plan, and I've read this several times, and every time I read it, I shake my head. It identifies this area as intensity levels 1 and 2, the lowest level of intensity. And then it goes on to say these areas have limited transportation network. Therefore, they are more suited for low intensity development. Just as we've discussed, the the R1 single family development is low intensity development. You know, something that our CDOT director said last week that concerned me, trying to put high intensity in this area could create safety issues. Council, please don't risk the safety of our citizens by placing some high intensity development on a transportation network more suited for low intensity development. And then thirdly, I would say just the opposition from the community. Mr. Chair, could we ask that all of those that are in attendance tonight, if they are in opposition to this PUD, I would like for them to raise their hand at this time. Somewhere on your computer is a raise hand button. I would like to ask you to raise your hand at this time so that we can note how many is actually on this Zoom call in opposition. And the number's still climbing, Mr. Chair. It looks like we're up to about 97, 98. I think the council can look over there in the attendance column and see that there are 98 residents of the Mountain Creek community on this call tonight that is in opposition, that is asking this council to hear their voice and deny this PUD. I know I've gotten well over 100 emails in opposition to this PUD. This conversation that has been going on for over 3 years, and the 140 apartments is a deal breaker for this community. And if we defer this tonight, we'll be back in 60 days rehashing this same argument. Nothing will change because the developer has said the apartments stay, and the community has remained steadfast in their opposition to the apartments. Council, I'm asking for your support tonight in helping me represent the voice of the people of Mountain Creek by denying this PUD. Mr. Vice Chair, I make a motion to deny this PUD.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. No further hands. I have a motion and a second for denial. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Mitchell,
This is for denial.
Or denial.
Yes.
Councilman Ledford,
I abstain.
Councilman Gilbert,
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod,
Yes.
Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Burrs,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Henderson,
Yes.
there's 7 yeses.
And with that, Mr. Chair, the chair is yours again, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
Great
Vice
job,
Chair.
Vice Chair. Great job.
I appreciate you standing in. You did do a great job this afternoon. Okay, let me get down. And just to be clear, the motion to deny was approved. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, I think that moves us down to 7J. We're now under Public Works and Transportation. Madam Clerk, if you would, let's read J and K together if there's no opposition or from the council. And Mr. Vice Chair, would you let Mr. Bridger out, please, sir?
Item J, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to approve change order number 1 final for SSK Construction LLC of Old Fowler, Missouri for contract number W18019-201 South Chickamauga Interceptor Improvements Phase 1 for a decreased amount of $320,438.30 for a revised contract amount of $5,052,561.70. Item K, a resolution to amend resolution number 30180 for J. Combi Construction, Inc. of Cookeville, Tennessee to restore the original contingency amount of $400,000 as per resolutions 29522 and 29138 for a revised contingency amount of $571,000 relative to contract number W16013-201 City Code Pump Reliability Improvements, a consent decree project for a total project cost of $10,359,483.
Councilman Gilbert?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor to approve items J and K with a proper second. Questions or comments before we vote? Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilwoman Burrs,
Yes.
Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod,
Yes.
Councilman Gilbert,
Yes.
Councilman Ledford,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Henderson,
Yes.
8 yeses.
Motion to approve items J and K carries. Now, Madam Clerk, let's read 7L, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Youth and Family Development to enter into a blanket purchase agreement with the Electric Power Board to pay client services payment for the citizens of Chattanooga that qualify for assistance under the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, LIHEAP, and the Community Services Block Grant, CSBG, programs for a grant period October 1, 2020 through September 30, 2023, in the amount of $8,025,500.
Councilman Gilbert,
Well, that's an old hand, sir. I'm sorry.
what's the pleasure of the council for item L, please?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve with a proper second. Questions or comments before we vote? All right, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilman Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilman Ledford,
Yes.
Councilman Gilbert,
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod,
Yes.
Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Byrd,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Henderson,
Yes.
8 yeses.
So moved. Now we come down to purchases this afternoon. Council, if you would bring up your purchases for this evening. Mr. Vice Chair, would you bring in Mr. Salmons, please?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Salmons.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of council. We have a few purchase items this evening for your approval and one emergency purchase to bring to your attention. First, starting with the Water Quality Division of Public Works, we have the purchase of municipal parking lot sweeping services being awarded to Clean Sweep Incorporated for an estimated annual cost of $60,000. The next two items are from the Waste Resource Division of Public Works, the first being the purchase of Patterson Vertical Mixed Flow Pump, being awarded to Patterson Pump Company for an estimated annual cost of $339,699. And the final item from the Waste Resource Division is the purchase of 10 hydraulic submersible sewage grinder pumps being awarded to Water and Waste Equipment for an estimated cost of $16,000 plus freight. That concludes the purchases for this evening.
All right, what's the pleasure of the council?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. I think I heard a second. Questions or comments before we vote? Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilwoman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod,
Yes.
Councilman Gilbert,
No.
Councilman Ledford,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Henderson,
Yes,
7 yeses.
motion carries. Mr. Salmons, emergency purchase?
Yes, thank you. We have one emergency purchase under the mayor's emergency declaration. It is COVID related. It's COVID-19 Safe Workplace is the description. It's being awarded to Base Camp Health. It is purchase order number 560313 and the total amount of $24,000 for a 6-month predictive workforce safety program.
All right, any questions about our emergency purchase this afternoon? You must have explained it fairly well. Thank you, Mr.
Try our
Salmons.
best. Thank
Good
you
evening.
very much. You have a good evening.
Mr. Vice Chair, you can excuse our guest. We now move to committee reports. I will just take them as I see them on my screen. Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting today, and we will again in 2 weeks.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Byrd?
No report, sir.
Councilwoman Byrd?
No report.
Vice Chair Smith?
No report, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Gilbert,
No report.
Councilman Ledford,
No report, Chairman.
Councilwoman Coonrod.
No report.
Thank you, ma'am. We now move to other business. Mr. Councilman Gilbert?
We are going to have an Economic and Community Development Committee meeting next week, and seeing how Councilman Ogle is not here to announce it, I thought I would.
Thank you very much, sir. Councilman Gilbert, is that what you were gonna?
No, sir. I was going to go to the next other business.
Okay. All right. First thing listed is a couple of certificate of compliance. Mr. Attorney?
Yes, sir. The first one here, RIA Group, RIA Smarts, it's a certificate of compliance for District 8. It would be at 203 East Main Street at Suite 107. And this location complies with all of the zoning laws for the city. And there has been a report that has been made that none of those folks have any disqualifications. And that needs to be signed by at least 5 members of this body. Those have already been provided to Nicole so that she can forward them on to you. The second one here is to Anju Group, Inc., and it's another RIA Smart number 3, and that will also be in District number 8 at 439 East MLK Boulevard, and same information. It's a retail food store, no problems with the qualifications of the individuals that are involved, and the location complies with the zoning laws.
Very well. Madam Clerk, would you make sure to email all the council to get their permission for signatures?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Next on the list is our board appointments. We do have several council people with board appointments tonight. We're going to start with Councilman Gilbert.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to reappoint on zone appeal Jeffrey Brown, and I also like to reappoint on sign appeal Alexis Fennessy.
All right. Madam Clerk, did you get those appointments?
Yes, I have it.
Councilman Gilbert, could you provide contact information to our clerk for those appointments?
I have.
Okay, good. Thank you, sir. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to reappoint Paul Betbys to the Zoning Appeals Board. I would like to appoint Christopher Scott Hibberts to the Sign Appeals Board. And I would like to reappoint Hicks Armour to the Health, Education and Housing Board. Mr. Attorney, does that take a vote of approval?
It does, I believe. Yes, sir. He's going to be elected by this body, but that's fine.
So I would like to appoint and put him up for nomination, Hicks Armour, for the Health, Education and Housing Board.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor with a proper second. Now I have some hands up, but I'm assuming it's not about questions for this appointment.
It is.
It is? Okay, Councilman Gilbert?
I've got a question. Is this a 7 board member? Or is this a 9 board member?
It is currently a 7 board member. We have to get a charter amendment with the state to make it a 9 board member, and that is what is in process.
And do we supposed to go through the same process that we had gone with the other board, the IDB board?
That is the way that y'all had elected to proceed on that before, at least for members. Mr. Armour has been the chair of that body now, at least for 1 term, and it's been very good.
I have no problem with he had nominated, but I thought in the future that we might not go back to the way we're doing the other boards until they actually changed it to a 9-member board.
And we are in the process of trying to get you a 9-member board there, but it's the Secretary of State that has to approve that charter amendment.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we ready to vote?
I have a question, a follow-up.
Councilwoman Burrs.
Yeah, so last week, Councilman Gilbert's right. Hicks is a great guy. I have no problem being supportive of him. But last week, I believe we said we were going back to the old way of doing it, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So are we or aren't we?
Good question.
Well, Councilwoman, can I answer that question?
Yeah, I would love it because we're not following our own process.
Sure. Well, let me explain it this way. There are 3 appointments that need to be made.
All right.
Each group will get an appointment. And now in Vice Chair's absence last week during our discussion, I volunteered his vote to go to Councilman Mitchell. In other words, what Councilman Mitchell is doing is nominating somebody for districts 1, 2, and 3. Then the next appointment will be for 4, 5, and 6, and then 7, 8, and 9. Now, we need 3 appointments. They can come in any order, but each group of districts will have an appointment to this board.
Yeah, and I fully agree with what you said. What was said last week was the next appointment was 4, 5, and 6. So
after this appointment.
After this appointment.
After this appointment.
Whatever.
Yeah,
Hicks is great. I have no problem supporting him, but I think we may be getting a little confused. That's a nice way of putting it in how we do things. So at any rate, sure, go ahead.
But you are correct. After this appointment, 4, 5, and 6 will be up to the plate. Okay. Any more questions before we vote? Madam Chair, roll call, please.
Councilman Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilman Ledford,
Yes.
Councilman Gilbert,
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod,
Yes.
Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Burrs,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Henderson,
Yes.
8 yeses.
Motion to appoint Hicks Armor carries 8-0. Anything else, Councilman Mitchell?
That's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilman Byrd.
Yes, sir. I have an appointment to the Multicultural Affairs Board, and that will be Miss Deborah R. Halfaker.
Okay. I'm going to ask, and I should have asked Councilman Mitchell, Council, make sure that you provide contact information to our clerk.
I did.
Thank you. Is that it, Councilman?
Yes, sir.
All right. Councilman Ledford, appointment to a board?
Well, I think I have a Board of Zoning Appeals I was going to do later in the month, but Phil, can you clarify that? Or Nicole?
You can do a Board of Zoning Appeals if you wish to do at this time or later in the month. Board of Zoning Appeals is not a problem. The issue for Health and Ed Board is a problem just because of the aspect of the requirements under state law. That's it.
Okay, well, since we're doing appointments, the chairman will allow, I'd like to reappoint Scott McColpin to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Coonrod, board appointment?
No, I don't have a board appointment, but I want to make sure that I understand what's happening moving forward.
With
Gilbert seemed to keep reappointing these people and other districts not having a say. So I want to make sure I'm in line with what's happening. So we have 2 more additional appointments for the HEB board for 4, 5, and 6. But he just appointed somebody for 5, I guess. And then 7, 8, and 9 is also have somebody to appoint. Is that right?
No.
We're talking about the HEH board. Is that the board you're referring to at this
That
point?
Russell just reappointed somebody to that board. You said we got 2 more.
No. Which board did you appoint to, Councilman Gilbert?
Board of Zoning.
It was zoning board and it was sign appeal.
Zoning board and sign appeals. The only person that made an appointment or a nomination to the HEH board was Councilman Mitchell. He appointed for districts 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
The next group will be 4, 5, and 6.
And then
the next
7, 8,
group
9.
will be 7, 8, and 9.
Okay, just making sure, because Councilwoman Burrs, she, I thought about her saying that it was the board specifically, so I wanted to make sure.
Sure.
And we are in the process at this point of trying to increase the number to 9 members, but we have to get the approval of the Secretary of State to do that. As soon as that's occurred, then there should be enough room to have someone in each district.
Okay, any more board appointments this evening? Okay, seeing no hands, we are now going to move to recognition of persons wishing to address the council. Mr. Vice Chair, I'm sure there's many people that signed up tonight to speak. So I guess at this time, if you have registered to speak and you would like to do so at this time, would you please raise your hand and notify the council that you would like to speak? Mr. Attorney, would you read the rules for speaking tonight, please?
Yes, sir. We are meeting in a Zoom format tonight, at least through February the 27th. This is still authorized at this point in time by the governor's executive orders. At the end of each council meeting, the chair can recognize members of the public who wish to address the council. To do so, please come on and be recognized in this meeting and provide name and council district before addressing the council. You can't have more than 3 minutes to speak when you come on, and you can address the council only upon matters within their legislative and quasi-judicial authority and not upon matters which are regulated by other governmental bodies. You can't use any vulgar or obscene language nor use the floor to personally attack or personally denigrate others, and address your comments to the council as a whole, not individual members. But you're ready to go at this point. It looks like we got Ms. Gooden with her hand up.
Mr. Vice Chair, could you confirm that Ms. Gooden is registered?
She is good, sir.
Would you bring her in and put the 3 minutes on the screen? All right, good afternoon. If you'd give us your council district and unmute your mic, you may begin.
I'm in District 8 in the Riverside, Amnicola area.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a concern about the increase of the railroad noise, especially in the overnight hours. That includes the wheels squealing and the cars bumping. Sometimes 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning. So my understanding is that the local government is responsible for ordinances related to noise. This is not just a nuisance, but my concern is that this has an impact on the health and the quality of life of our residents. It's been noted that major health consequences could result, such as stress-related illnesses, high blood pressure, speech interference, hearing loss, sleep disruptions, and lost productivity. So my concern is that in searching, I didn't see anything related to this in the noise ordinances. So I'm just wondering, should there be something in the ordinances related to railroad noise? Should there be a moratorium on industrial noise that's during the overnight hours, especially close to close proximity to neighborhoods? So could the city attorney give guidance on this issue?
Mr. City Attorney, would you like to comment, sir?
Your response. I have talked to I have talked to Councilman Byrd about this.
Sure. Mr. Attorney?
Yes, sir. We do have provisions regarding certain noises here, and we have specifically under 2568 in the code enumerated prohibited acts. There are provisions regarding making horns or signal devices that are allowed in specific areas here. And we deal with operations of vehicles. We have typically not dealt with the railroad aspect of this because those railroad lines are in operation because the federal government has given them the ability to be able to have that in place in those areas. If the council wishes to do so, we can try to develop rules that'll have to be consistent with what those federal regulations allow us to do.
Mr. Attorney?
Councilman, go ahead, Vice Chair, take the timer down, please. For now, Councilman Byrd.
Yes, and we have had several conversations, and every time I try to reach out, whether it's to the railroad or to someone in administration or to something, I'm always hit with the brick road. We have no jurisdiction over the railroad. We cannot do anything when it comes to the railroad. And outside of Riverside Drive, also in Avondale and East Chattanooga, and I'm pretty sure Councilwoman Coonrod hears this a lot too, people do complain constantly about the noise that are coming from the railroad. I had done some research to find that at one point in time, I don't know if it was back in the 70s, I think 70s or 80s, that the community had an agreement with the railroad that they would not do operations or bang the cars or, move during certain times of the night so that people can sleep. And we do understand that we built our city around a railroad. That's understandable. We understand that they was here first, way before we were here. But I just think some common courtesy, or I think that just if we as a body push to ask that, hey, have some respect or some common courtesy for our constituents that live around this railroad that you have, I think we can give our people a little peace. I understand it's not going to be perfect because of where we live, but it just makes no sense that, the people that live in our communities can't get no peace, and it seems to get worse. So I asked the attorney, is it something, a letter or something that we can draw up? I don't know if the body would be willing to sign off on it or how that would look, or how we can do as the resolution or something that we can give to the railroad to ask them, can they, just hold up or, pause doing 4 o'clock in the morning with banging these cars because people are not able to, get a good night's sleep.
Yes, sir. And individual council members can clearly do letters. If you want to do a resolution by the body and the body is willing to approve that, then that's one method, but it's going to depend on what we have the authority to do under state and federal law and what the, I guess the railroad is willing to do as well to be a good neighbor. That's part of the issue that needs to have some dialogue here.
All right. Well, I would definitely like to have that dialogue in some shape, form, or fashion. And I think it would be stronger coming from the body,
yes,
and other than just one council person. So, I ask that you all will support that in helping me and, helping the community and sending something as a body to the railroad to see if we can get them to cooperate in some shape, form, or fashion.
Yes, sir. If you can give me instances specifically to add, I will be glad to prepare a resolution for you, and then it'll be up to this body.
I have that for you first thing in the morning, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Vice Chair, you can excuse our guest. Thank you, sir. Anyone else that is registered to speak that would like to do so at this time, would you please raise your hand? Council, I am not seeing any other hands at this time. What's pleasure?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, sir. We're adjourned. We will see everyone back next week.